Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia. This is day one of our brand new series on the Liberian legal system. We call this FOL Justice Forum. This is a whole year series on the Liberian judicial system or the legal system or justice. My guest or the discussion in this series, I have with me Councillor Frederick Jewe. Councillor Jowa, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm happy to be here.
And Councillor Jowa have been here talking about the legal issues for some time now. We also have Justice Kabina Mohammed Janen. Councillor Janen, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy to be here, especially with Councillor Jiwe.
Thank you so much. And we are expecting Councillor Jerome Verdia, who is going to join us later during the show. This is FOL Justice Forum, where we're going to be discussing the liberal legal system and its impact on the lives of the people and also their human rights. This is going to take off a while. We are honored to have Councillor Jewel, Councillor Janen, Councillor Verdia, and Attorney Tish Jallo, who will be sharing with us their knowledge, their expertise in this all-important discussion. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. Please share the show. This is to our core, that is education. So we want to educate on the legal system because most of the time we find that people are, discussing these things politically, not using the law. So we are happy to have two legal minds to join us. Before we start the show, we want to begin from somewhere, right? We did a show last week, and there are some issues that came out of that show that we want to discuss. But first, I will have Councillor Jewe and Councillor Janet to give their opening remarks. Let me start with Councillor Jewe.
Well, as a Liberian, we think that our people should get the education that is necessary for their own lives and for their day-to-day business. We are looking forward at this show or the discussion during the period to be covered. We assist our people to understand their basic human rights and their understanding of the legal process in Liberia so that in so many cases, they will not just rush to a lawyer without having no background at all. I'm happy to be here and I'm happy to be part of the presentation.
Thank you so much. Let's hear from Councillor Janet on your opening remarks.
Well, following the footsteps of Councillor Jiwe, let me thank you for the thought and for organizing this very important program. There's something that we always like to remember when we are involved with this kind of activity. And that is one thing that we are told from time to time, which is ignorance of the law excuses no man.
Mm-hmm. Not even woman.
No. So that utterance basically sends out a clear message that everyone must make effort to learn at least the laws that affect your life. Because when you go wrong, you are already expected to know the law. So I hope that this series that we are going to begin today will share some light, especially on those things that are considered as rights and obligations under the Liberian Constitution in particular. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Councillor Janen, and thank you also, Councillor Jewel, for coming. I want to thank our viewers for tuning in to this very all-important series. So let's start with last week. These are some of the things we're going to be discussing today. And we're going to start with issues from our last show, and that's the case involving Mr. Brownie Samukai. We're going to go into the introduction to the series, and this series is on the Liberian legal system. Where the two counselor hinted you already. Why is it important? We're going to be learning more on that, and then last, the basis of all the things we're going to talk about, the basis is the Constitution and our rights as a people. So we're going to do an overview of constitutional and fundamental rights. So let's go back. Last week we discussed the Samukai case, and in discussing the Samukai case, there were many angles that we took. First, uh, from what we gather from the both of you, is that the sentence, the president used Article 59 to say Samuka, his sentence was suspended. And was also saying, does that also mean that his rights have been restored? That was a question that we went back and forth for some time. The second thing is the president pro tem informed the NEC as the presiding officer, saying there is a vacancy in the Senate. There were questions about that too, and that's what I want us to delve into quickly before we go forward. The first one is let's start with the presiding officer. According to, I think that's Article 47 of the Liberian Constitution, Article 47,
37.
Article 47 says the Senate shall elect once every year a president pro tempore who shall preside in the absence of the president of the Senate, and such officer as shall ensure the proper functioning of the Senate. So the argument and what Councillor Vani Shema made also is anytime the vice president is not there, the Senate pro tem is going to preside. So that makes him the presiding officer. So that's what I'm reading from Article 47. So let's go back to that and discuss it briefly before we go to the next one. Councillor Johnny, I want you to start on this one about the presiding officer. Does Article 47 tell us that the pro tem was right to write this neck and say, as presiding officer, there is a vacancy?
Okay, so first, let's go to the Constitution and say who is the presiding officer designated by the Liberian Constitution for the Liberian Senate. Then we'll go to the second part that you have just raised as an issue.
Okay.
So we'll go to chapter 6, where you find Article 51. Article 51 says, there shall be a vice president who shall assist the president in the discharge of his functions. The vice president shall be elected on the same political ticket and shall serve the same term as the president.
Okay.
The vice president shall be president of the Senate and preside over its deliberations without the right to vote. This article, in my view, designates unequivocally the presiding officer of the Liberian Senate. And that person is the vice president of the Republic of Liberia. When you go to the article that you just talked about, 47, that it says is the president pro tempore who shall preside in the absence of the president of the Senate. So where is Vani Sharma coming from if you quoting him correctly? This for me is so clear that one should not subject it to any rational argument. The presiding officer of the Liberian Senate is the vice president of the Republic of Liberia. Then you go to Article 37. to talk about this particular duty that the president pro tempore is said to have executed. Is it a duty assigned to him as president pro tempore? Article 37 says the presiding officer. Now, so Mr. John,
Okay.
yeah, it says in the event of a vacancy in the legislature caused by death, resignation, expulsion, or otherwise, the presiding officer shall within 30 days notify the Elections Commission thereof. I understand this to be the president, the vice president of the Republic of Liberia, who is the designated presiding officer by the Liberian Constitution.
So what if that designated presiding officer is absent? What happens?
Yeah, if it's absent, if that person is absent, then you can have the person that is authorized to sit in the absence of the president of the Senate to carry out the function. The time this letter was written, I still remember very clearly that the vice president of the Republic of Liberia was here in Monrovia. So there's no question about absence here.
Okay. So absent does not mean being absent in the session. Means absent from the country. Is that what you are?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in order for you to carry out this function, there must be a showing that the vice president was not present.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Joel, your view?
So, you know, there's controversy as to who is the presiding officer. As I said the last time, it started the very first sitting of the Senate in the WIAS government. Our colleague, Councillor Sherman, first the president pro tem said that he must preside. That was the kind of historical thing that started, because he's the presiding officer, and that the vice president should, sit aside. He was going to preside. So, in order to encourage him or to support him, Councillor Sherman said, "Yes, you are correct," and perhaps rely upon the same provision of the Constitution that he just read. And so the president pro tem was thinking that he, in fact, is the president of the Senate. His understanding was that. And so down the road, the declaration of whether a seat is vacant in the Senate, the president pro tem, being ill-advised, I would say, he decided to write the National Election Commission when there was no showing that the vice president was either absent from Liberia, not at work during the particular day, or that he just sat and decided to act. I don't know whether it's an issue that we might have to discuss a different day. Law and order has become a problem in Liberia, a real problem. I think it was yesterday when I was watching I read Front Page Africa that a motorbike boy was attacked at Chocolate City Junction and killed by 3 other boys. And the community people, in revenge, they were able to arrest, I think, 2 or 3 of the boys, but kill one. So the motorbike owner was killed at Chocolate City Junction. And the community people took upon themselves to also kill one of the guys who is alleged to have killed this motorbike owner. I think about 2 weeks ago, around the cocoa oil factory, the citizen of that Red Life cocoa oil factory area set on fire 3 young men and burned them to death. Wow. So these are the kind of things you get into when the law is played with, when people think that they can interpret the law to satisfy political interest. Again, admitting that Councillor Sharma is not correct. The vice president of the Republic of Liberia is by law, by the Constitution, the presiding officer. If there's a reason that she's absent from the country, then the president pro tem will act. In other words, what the president pro tem did, if Mr. Samaka wants to challenge it, he could challenge it before the Supreme Court, and we'll have an opinion.
Thank you. So writing the NEC is not necessarily done in chambers. The so the whole idea of the vice president being absent is like you should actually be absent and not reachable. Is that what I'm hearing? It is not the case of, okay, she was not in session when we did this, so she was absent. We are not sure that this particular letter was written why, and the this was decided in chambers, and the vice president was absent.
No, the facts are not clear on that. But what I think the framer of that portion of the Constitution was intending was being absent. Either the vice president is sick and she is not at work, and the Senate is informed one way or another by some of our staff members or herself that I'm not well today, so I wouldn't come to work. Or that the vice president, in fact, has traveled out of the country and the president pro tem presiding. Mind you, the reason for that is to ensure that the procedural aspect of declaring a seat vacant by law is understood and followed. Other than that, if you had, let's say, what the other senators, if you have Milton Teje presiding for at one point, Milton Teje will get up and write the letter himself. If you had any other senator, maybe Councilor Sherman presiding, he'll go ahead and say, I'm the. So you will never get, there will be no finality. You wouldn't be able to tell who actually is supposed to the legal duty falls upon whom. Is it anyone who's sitting in that chair and presiding on that particular day? Or what was the Constitution speaking about? The Constitution was speaking to the vice president and not the president pro tem.
And just to add to that, in terms of the level of recklessness that we reach as a country, I remember very clearly that during the impeachment proceeding against me, the president pro tempore proceeded to issue the summon to summon me to come there. And in their own rule, they talk about the presiding officer. And we challenged that before the presiding officer, the Chief Justice, who then said that was incorrect and therefore ordered the issuance of summons under his gavel. So the same thing. But again, you have people in the Liberian Senate in particular who have had these notorious records of ill advisement. And Councilor Sherman is just one of them. It's unfortunate.
You are mute.
Our next issue here, before we go to the topic of the day, is Article 59, which grants the president the power to commute sentences, to pardon, and to restore rights. And it was that provision that was used for the president to suspend the jail term of Brownie Samukai. So issues that arose after our show last week. First, let's read the provision that was used. The president may remit any public forfeitures and penalties, suspend any fines and sentences, grant reprieves and pardon, and restore civil rights after conviction for all public offenses except impeachment. So the president used that and suspended the sentence of Brownie Samuka and say, well, the government will even pay the money, and then you go to the court now and pay back at a term that will be agreed upon. So what came out especially from and Councilor Johnny, I want you to start with this, that because the president cited Article 59, it means that the president has also restored the rights of Brownie Samukai. So the issue that came out is there is a precedent in the United States. This is not Liberian, since our law closely resembles that of United States. I want to use that. and that was in the Scooter Libby case. I think he was the chief of staff of then Vice President Dick Cheney. So he wanted this. He wanted pardon. That's actually what he wanted. But President Bush did not grant pardon. Instead, he commuted the sentence. So they say after a failed appeal, President Bush commuted Libby's sentence of 30 months in federal prison, leaving the other parts of his sentence intact. As a consequence of this, of his conviction in the United States, because he was convicted. So, as a consequence of a conviction in the United States versus Libby, Libby's license to practice law was suspended until being reinstated in 2016. President Donald Trump fully pardoned Libby on April 13, 2018. So if this is right, I'm not a lawyer. If this is right, it means if I will use the same logic or apply the same thing, I'm saying President Weah suspended or commuted the sentence of Brownie Samukai, but other provisions of his conviction are still intact, and so his legal rights or his entitlement to that seat have not been restored. Councillor Janet, your response.
This was one of the areas of different views being expressed by both Councillor Jiwa and myself. Then what I've done to reinforce my own belief on what I said the last time was to go to the opinion of the Supreme Court, especially the Justice in Chambers ruling on the matter. And this is why he said, basically, that on the question, he said it should be noted that the Supreme Court, in affirming the ruling of the trial court, conditioned the suspended sentence on a foundation that the failure of the defendants, including second respondent J. Brownie Samukai, to restitute 50% of the amount, the sentence will be reactivated. Now, when the president suspended the sentence, there were two things implied in that suspension, because there were two things that Mr. Samukai was supposed to satisfy as far as the penalty of the crime is concerned. One was he was supposed to pay the money back, which is the restitution. And even under the law, even if he had paid all that money, he was still required to serve a sentence, which is a jail term. So these two things must be satisfied. Now, under our rule, practice, and procedure, the president now says the money, we will basically loan you money to pay the first part. So you will only go now to the Ministry of Justice and enter a stipulation. How long that will take, as far as we are concerned, they will work that out, unless there is a showing of breakdown in that arrangement. But he was told to go, and then they say the government of Liberia, in fact, will now proceed to pay the full amount, as indicated in the opinion, to the AFL, whose money we're talking about. The second part, which is the jail term, the president says that one is suspended. Now, where we seem to have varying opinions is that what does that suspension mean? Why I fully concede the point that it falls short of the full meaning of pardon, within the context in which we speak, there's nothing left there again. Once that money part has been settled, that money issue has been settled, All he needs to do for the formality is to go there so they can enter an arrangement to stipulation to pay back. So what happened now to the jail term? The president said, "I've suspended that." So if he has satisfied both conditions, the money is paid, the sentence going to jail is now set aside. Basically, I would think that that will amount to only one thing for him in terms of dividend, and that is the restoration of his rights as a citizen of Liberia, his civil liberties to participate in the political life of the country, including this taking his seat as senator.
Right.
That's my reading of the
Okay. Before
of the
Councillor Joel comes in, my question to you is, what was stopping him in the first place from taking a seat? Was it the jail terms alone, or was it because of the charges? That is money laundering and all the other ones. So what was stopping him from taking his seat? Councillor Janet.
me or
Yeah, no, you first. What prevented Samuka from taking his seat? Was it the jail terms alone, or was it because of the crimes?
No. It was because of the conviction and the sentence. He was convicted, and having said that he was guilty of those felony crimes, so the court now said, "We send you to jail and you pay the money back."
Right.
That's the sentence.
Right.
The sentence is in two parts. One restitution, and the other one is the jail term.
Right. So what I'm asking is, so jail terms and restitution were the only two things that prevented him from taking a seat. So since those two have been removed, he can now take a seat. Is that what you are saying?
That's my understanding.
All right. Let me go to Councillor Joel.
You know, I hold a different view, and I think those I really don't know factually what Mr. President Weah meant when he said he was suspending the jail sentence. In treating such a matter, I am sure the president have legal counsel. He have people who are lawyers who work in the mansion. Should have gone further to ask the president, do you mean to restore the civil liberty of Mr. Samokai? Can he now vote or be voted for? Can he take a seat in a discussion to get what the president meant? But if it is left with just a suspension of a prison sentence, and the government, in order to maintain law and order, I guess, went ahead and said we will pay to the armed forces of Liberia the rest of the money, but you go to the Minister of Justice and set up a payment by stipulation agreed to by you and the Minister of Justice. It didn't still mean that Mr. Samoka could take his seat. And if, again, as I said, if I were a lawyer for Mr. Samoka, I would have now proceeded to have a prohibition proceeding filed before the justice in chambers to prevent the election commission from holding any by-election or special election as it is scheduled for May 10. I would have done that. I will also appear along with Mr. Samakai and maybe do a letter to the election commission to schedule a day to have Mr. Samakai certificated and seated. And if the election commission went back and said, no, we can't because the president only suspended your jail sentence and you have the money to pay, then the matter goes on to the Supreme Court to be actually interpreted. But suspension and pardon are not the same thing. Again, the Levy case, even though you may say this was done under Liberian law, but Levy license remains suspended. He could not practice law when he was
his sentence was commuted.
When his sentence was commuted, until he was pardoned finally. So when you are pardoned from the commission of a crime and the sentence thereof, your liberty is automatically restored, and you regain your right to function as a normal citizen of a country. I guess Mr. Weir did not intend to do that, so he went ahead and instead of pardoning Mr. Samaka, he went ahead and suspended only the sentence and say we pay the money and you go pay the rest of it. As it stands, you will need a court decision to determine whether what the president had done is consistent with the Article 59 as referenced by Justice Janet. And until that is done, I'm afraid that Mr. Samaka may not be able to just take his seat. If he doesn't challenge the process to go to the Supreme Court, and then he might be, to me, he will remain a disabled person.
Yeah, it remains.
I think I agree with Councillor Jewel that this whole case scenario will definitely require an interpretation by the Supreme Court of Liberia, because it's still it's still a new law. I mean, new in the sense that we have not gotten an interpretation from the Supreme Court regarding this provision. So, like he said, if this man is someone who really wants to know whether his rights have been restored pursuant to this declaration by the president, the best way to get that answer will be first to go to the election commission, file a petition also to stop them. Whatever we do about something that will get you before the court for an interpretation.
So even though United States and Liberia are not the same, but what do you make of the Scooter Levy case that President Bush only suspended the sentence, he did not pardon, and so
No,
Scooter
I
Levy
think
was still
did he commute or he suspended?
he commute. That's the same, right? And suspend.
Well, not necessarily. In my view, I haven't read that case, so I wouldn't be able to comment on it much. But like he said, in our own situation here, we will need an interpretation by the Supreme Court so that we all can be clear as to this.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia FOL Justice Forum. I have Councillor Kabina Mohammed Janet and Councillor Frederick A.B. Joe. The topic today is on the introduction of the new series that we have started today, which is studying the Liberian legal system and its impact on the people, their lives, and their fundamental rights. So we're going to introduce that. And so let me start with Councillor Joe to tell us why is this important.
Okay, but just before Councillor Joel coming in to do the introduction, I wanted to just make one brief comment.
Sure.
Before we proceed.
Sure.
Now, the other day, your colleague, your co-host, raised the issue of Senator Tiaji.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Oh, but someone is sitting there." Given our legal system, especially the criminal justice system, Senator Tiaji is a convict.
Yeah.
But this was the issue. When the LACC prosecuted him and he was brought down guilty of that crime, I think it was theft related, he basically announced an appeal, but did not follow through with that appeal. Rather, he went to the court and started to make arrangement to restitute the money. Now, knowing that the fact that he was convicted, a guilty verdict was brought against him, and he started to pay, basically mean that he had decided to forego the appeal. So the question there was, why didn't the prosecution proceed to ensure that he was taken to jail? Nobody did that. And all we saw was that TJ had made some payment, some token payment, basically, and that was the end of the story. So the question was, I heard your colleague say, "Oh, Jana, you were on the Supreme Court. What did you do there?" The Supreme Court does not go down to say, why is this case not coming up? No. So nothing happened.
Yeah.
So he decided cleverly to go and make some token payment of that amount that he was supposed to restitute. And then the ministry, the LACC did not follow through with the case. And this is not the first time that this is happening in our jurisdiction. I know of few cases where people have been tried and convicted of crime, and most of them economic crimes, but nothing happened thereafter. Nothing, absolutely. And in most of those instances, it had been at the instance of the LACC.
So the case
Yeah, I
you
just
are,
wanted to make,
yeah, the case you are making reference to was when the LACC, indicted, when the superintendent was indicted, the LACC brought that he was indicted for expending 50,000 of our money, Sino County money, which represented 30% of land rental fees entrusted to him by the government. And so he was found guilty. And the person who's supposed to send him to jail, that's the Justice Ministry, they didn't do that.
yeah, but is the LACC that prosecuted the case? You know, the way the LACC works, they will maybe for any reason decide that there's a good reason to prosecute a person for crime, economic crime in particular.
Right.
When that is done, they are not allowed under the law to proceed with prosecution. They are required to send all of their findings, whatever evidence they may have compiled, to the Ministry of Justice
Right.
for, I think, 90 days or whatever. If the ministry does not act after that time period, I'm not sure whether it's 60 days or 90 days, then they will now proceed to take the case and go to court.
But the case was tried and he was found guilty, right?
Yeah, but this is the procedure now. So after the case was taken on by the LACC, they presented the evidence and found Milton TJ guilty of that crime. So the sentence was pay the money back and go to jail. That's the sentence. But in his case, though he announced an appeal, which was his right, I think he later on convinced himself that there was no basis to proceed with an appeal. Okay, so he went and started to pay back some of the amount. And the ministry and the LACC did nothing. The Ministry of Justice did not follow up either. So what was the role of the Supreme Court in that?
Yeah, but Councilor, the thing I'm understanding, not understanding here is the LACC was the one that took the case, and the court of Liberia judged the case and found him guilty and sentenced him. It was not LACC that sentenced him.
No. The LACC can't sentence anybody. It's
Exactly.
the court that sentences.
So after the court sentenced him, whose job it is to enforce that? The Justice Ministry.
Yeah, but who prosecuted him? It's the LACC.
Right.
So in my mind, as much as I agree as the Minister of Justice, there was no reason whatsoever for the LACC not to have followed on that issue and made sure that that the sentence was carried out.
Right. So as of today,
So nobody did that.
I know election is coming and TJ will be running. Will it be a case that someone can get up and say, oh no, this person is supposed to go to jail, or what, statute of limitation? What can be done now as of today?
Mr. John, the LACC prosecuted the case regarding the former police director. I think you remember that case with the uniform.
Yeah. Mona.
That case was successfully prosecuted by the LACC when the Ministry of Justice had indicated that they did not find sufficient evidence to proceed with the matter. LACC proceeded with it and found the director guilty of theft of property. The matter was appealed to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court affirmed the conviction. Did she go to jail? No. Did LSCC proceed to ensure compliance with the judgment? No. Did the ministry do that? No.
Councillor Jeba, why these things happening, and what can we do to TJ now?
You know, I think in such cases, the people of Liberia or concerned Liberians should take the Minister of Justice to court or LACC to court and ask the Supreme Court particularly to require, on a mandamus proceeding, to require the LACC and the Minister of Justice to enforce the law as the cases were heard and determined by the lower court. Because in the case of TJ, paying even $100 on the amount of money for which he was found guilty, and he was to pay the money and go to jail, it meant then that he agreed that he was guilty. Yeah. And if the citizen don't test it by compelling the executive branch of government to proceed with cases as they are lining up, there will be selective justice in the country. And there are selective justice in the country. In that, you know, if you have maybe political connection, you simply will not go to jail. If you're from Sunni and have no political connection, you'll be one of the first person. You committed economic crime, you'll be one of the first person to go to jail. I remember in the Ministry of Agriculture, there was a situation where I think the case was taken to court, but there was selective prosecution there also. So unless the Liberian people decide to hold, or law offices or Liberians who have law offices decide to go to court and challenge the executive branch of government to proceed further, and the Supreme Court mandating them to proceed, this is how they will behave.
Yeah.
Did anybody tell the LACC, leave TJ alone, let him go to sit as a senator? Did anybody say to the LACC, leave Muna? Muna was in law school, I guess, when I was there.
She graduated, in fact.
Yeah, I know Muna well. So did anybody politically say, you know, leave the woman alone, let the judgment, you know, rest there? What it presents is that foreigners and people who want to do business in the country will refuse to go to the country to do business because the law is being selective.
Yeah.
And the only way we can resolve that is that some law office, some group of Liberians take up the case and file a mandamus proceeding before the Supreme Court. Let the Supreme Court say that the LACC can sit down, or the Minister of Justice can sit down, and don't care. Because the country is injured. It's not just those people. The entire country become injured as a result of the poor attitude of the Minister of Justice and the LACC in many cases.
And how do you explain that mandamus case?
It's a petition to force them to do the work for which they were hired.
Okay, because I have one that I will be going when I go, because in 2017 published this book which contains I call it the foundational words of our nation. It contains the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Pledge of Allegiance, the national anthems, and other documents that I refer to as foundational documents. In Article 10 of the Constitution, it says that this Constitution should be distributed and taught in all schools. The government is not doing that. So when I get to Liberia, I'm going to sue the government of the Republic of Liberia and how you call that again?
Mandamus proceeding.
Right, I follow mandamus.
Compel them to do their work.
Oh, yes.
Let me just add, it appears that because everyone generally know that in prosecuting criminal cases, it's the responsibility of the Minister of Justice. So when the Minister of Justice doesn't proceed, they say, well, you know, the Minister of Justice decided not to proceed. But is the country injured but the attitude and action of the Minister of Justice. You can only test it by going to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll take a short break. When we come back, we're going to go into our topic for the day. That's the Liberian legal system.
Hello, my name is Talvina Cole. I am an activist, and you're watching Focus on Liberia.
You're watching Focus on Liberia, and my name is Dennis Jah. We are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. We at Focus on Liberia, we are true to our core to educate, to elevate, and promote all things Liberia. And in an attempt to educate, we decided to bring some legal minds so that we can talk about the legal system in our country. And so we are starting a series on the legal system in our country and how it impacts us as a people. How does it impact our lives and our fundamental rights, our God-given rights, our human rights as a people? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, Councillor Janet, why don't you start off with why is this very important and what are we going to get out of it? What will the Liberian people expect to get out of it?
Well, thank you very much. Firstly, a little bit about the Liberian Constitution. Following the coup d'etat in 1980, in which President Tolba was killed and followed by the execution of some prominent members of the government, the People's Redemption Council, which was the military government, decided that one of the things they would do would be to rewrite a constitution for the Republic of Liberia. So they set up a 25-man commission, and that commission was charged with the responsibility, with the duty to write for the Republic a new constitution. Interestingly, of that 25-member commission, I think my review showed that there was only one woman, 24 men. We've been on the male domination here for a long time. So I just took note of that. 25 person, one woman, I think was Rebecca Ware Wilson, the woman who used to be, I think, principal for demonstration school. The only woman in that. Now, after they did the draft, there were a lot of good things there, giving my own discussion with some of the people who were associated with the drafting of that document, including Mr. Justice Banks. The PROC as a ruling council was not very comfortable with most of the things there. There were a lot of checks and balances. There were a lot of things there to do with the integrity. That there was a judicial commission. In what other commission will be put in place, anyone who is supposed to be appointed or nominated to judicial offices will go through that commission. Is the commission that will do the vetting and other things, and then send a short list to the appointing authority. The PRC government wanted a lot of things in there and a lot of things out of that draft. The attempt to remove a lot of power from the hands of the president or the presidency, those were not things that the PRC government was comfortable with. They still wanted the imperial presidency, where you have almost all of the authorities vested in the person of the president. So they set up something they call Constitutional Advisory Commission, headed by Dr. Kessel at the time. The first one was Dr. Sawyer, and then this new one. And then they went in there and did a lot of things in terms of removing those checks and balances, integrity, institution, all of that. And then they came out with a diluted version that we have. But one thing that is very important is that they insisted on the inclusion of Article 97E. And that article in the Liberian Constitution basically gave them, the PRC government, a blanket immunity for everything that they may have done that was in conflict with any law. So those were the things that they did, and then finally, 1986 January 6, that constitution came into being after ratification by the Liberian people. I think the Liberian people just said, look, you know what? Let people go. Let ratify this thing so we can go to constitutional order. Now, this constitution has one particular area, and that's chapter 3, which deals with issues of rights, inalienable rights, the right to due process, fair hearing, the right not to be presumed innocent. No matter what the crime is, when you are charged, the law say you are an innocent person until the prosecution provides the evidence upon which you could be convicted. So all of those things are there. When somebody accuses you of something, that person will be brought in a court so that you can confront them. That they call it the right of confrontation, so that there can be cross-examination, all of those things. So those rights are contained primarily under chapter 3 of the Liberian Constitution. And then the Constitution, different from the first one, gives every Liberian citizen the right, when you are detained illegally, even during the state of emergency, for you to file a petition to be brought before a court of law so they can inquire into the reason for the detention. So those are some of the basic, what you call human rights provisions that are found in the Liberian Constitution.
Thank you, Councillor Jewa. Before we even go deep into the rights and overview of the Constitution, tell our listening public the importance of this series and what the Liberian people expect to get out of it.
We are expecting that the Liberian people will be educated. The Liberian legal system is a complex system. And so you become a victim when you really don't understand what the system is all about. There exists a lot of procedural issues that happen. And people say, oh, wow, the Constitution said that you cannot self-incriminate yourself, you can't be self-incriminated. So why am I being asked to produce documentations that might have been in my possession? Or the Constitution also required that, there should be, you could be released based upon the court recognizing that you will appear when the court wants you, instead of bond being required. Why is John Brown not released based upon the kind of person he is in the society? How's about the issue of bond? Where bail is allowed, the Constitution says should not be excessive. Why is the magistrate or maybe the circuit court, why are those judges requiring bond instead of just allowing the person to go based upon how much his worth is, his value, his commitment to the country, all of these things. What's about arrest? What is the difference between somebody being arrested and what is the difference between somebody being summoned? So all of these things need to be explained in the simplest term and form to be able to help our people to understand. And I, in particular, think that after this series we've done with the entire thing, people should be able to go to the magistrate court and do things on their own instead of going into some of these very fancy law offices and just to go file a bond. The lawyer will charge you $5,000 to $10,000. I was in Liberia during the when COVID started, and hearing that some law offices are started to ask people to make charge $2,000 to $5,000 to write a lease agreement about the owner. And I said, the lawyer that I spoke to, and I said, Councilor, that's why people are charging. And he said, oh, you've been out of this country for long. You don't know what's happening here. In fact, I go to court, he was referring to himself. I go to court, not charging $10,000 to $20,000. I'll charge $100,000 in such a case. And I said, wow. He said, but you need to return to be, and join the group. But I said to him that if I return, a lot of you will lose client because we're not going to start charging people $5,000 to prepare a lease agreement when the thing could cost $500. Why is it 5,000? And if the representation in the courtroom may last less than 30 days, why would that client be paying you $100,000? And so there are many things I think that this series will be helpful for, and encourage our people to pay attention, take away the politics, listen to the substance of the law, listen to why you need to know these rights and how they impact your day-to-day activity.
Thank you, Councillor Jenny. I don't think anybody can explain uh, better or can relate when you mix justice with politics than you. After, so talk to me about this justice and or the legal system and politics, because anytime a court case come up, most of our colleagues, especially in the media, are talking politics, and so the whole legal part is not really focused. And what we intend to do here is to explain these things so that people become aware not only about their rights but also their responsibilities. And as Councillor Jewel said, some things that you can do yourself, like here when you come, people go to lawyers to even file for their citizenship or file for green card, things that you can do yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So you can I want to hear you talking more about the importance of this series and what it's going to do for our people, hopefully.
No, it is a very important program that will help our people at least to understand the basics, those things that you can take care of yourself. Under the Liberian Constitution, for example, the issue of arrest. Now, in the Constitution, let's go further to the statute. The statute say when they go to the magistrate and explain a complaint to him against you, Mr. Jar, and he listens to the complaint, and it appears to him that this is border on crime, that magistrate, though he believes, based on the explanation provided to him, that this is a criminal matter, the law gives him the discretion to issue summons. To say, okay, I believe when I send this thing to Mr. Jar to say, come here on Tuesday, 2 o'clock, he will appear. So you don't have to issue real arrest to go and get that man and subject him to the embarrassment of arrest, restraining his movement and all of that. But most of the time, our magistrates are unlikely to do that. The moment the person comes and explains to him, this is what happened, generally, the next thing is to issue real arrest. Then the second thing about the bond that Councillor Jewel just talked about, now this is a constitutional issue. The Constitution says all accused persons shall be bailable upon their personal recognizance. Now, I was a little bit amazed last. My brother, if we want to test the law, we ourselves will have to be prepared to sometimes undergo some discomfort. If I were Mr. Alexander Cummings, given my status in the society, there's a man who has run for president at least for one time. He had good investment in the country. I go there, I will say, based on my personal recognition, allow me to go. Anytime you want the trial to start, you send me the notice, I'll be here. If he says no, I will say, okay, send me to jail. But Liberian people, one of the things they scare that big jail business. As soon as he talk about jail, he ready to run away. So the way we can test the law sometimes is to go through some of these kinds of discomfort. Then you go, they say, bring the document. We want to use it. The same document that you had said you wanted them to punish you because the Liberian law say those are your right. If you go and file a criminal complaint, The thing you rely on to prosecute me, the law said I can ask you to give them to me to prepare my defense. Then the next day you can say, no, I don't see document I want Mr. Jah to bring. I will say, okay, I want to test that law. I will go up to the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to interpret it. But we ain't ready for that. Oh, they say take it to my time, They take it to my time. I need to be concentrated on my political campaign. Boss man, if we don't test the law, we will never know what it means.
Yeah.
What the law means. No? So these are some of the problems. But this series, Imam, is very important because it helps us to understand those basic things that border on the protection of our rights as human beings and as Liberian citizens.
Thank you. You dropped knowledge here when you mentioned that the draft constitution, the committee that was headed by Dr. Sawyer had only one woman. I checked
Yes.
that out, and here is it. So we have this completed this 28th day of January AD 1983 in the city of Monrovia, Republic of Liberia, by the National Constitution Commission. Amos Sawyer, chairman; D.K. Wonseli, co-chairman; Robert G.H. Azango, member; Goni Balefe, member; J. Emmanuel Berry, member; George D. Brown, member; Augustus F. King, member; H. Bama Formula Senior, member; Bangali Fofana, member; Philip G. Giribegu, member; Alfred V. W. Gifler, member; Isaac L. George, member; J. Rudolph Grimes, member; Abraham L. James, member; Peter A. Johnson, member; David Pomakpo, member; Henry G. Kwekwe, member; Albert Port, member; Patrick L. N. Sayon, member; James Tiatape, member; S. Baron Ta, member; B. Momba Togba, member; Waller Topo, member; the only lady you say, Rebecca Ray Wilson, member; Tuan Ray, member. These were all Dr. Sawyer's colleagues.
Most of them were university professors.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my thing was, I was just, and I really didn't. I just took note of that when I was just running through the concept. But even at that time, there is still marginalization of the women.
Yeah.
1 out of 25 persons. Because there was one person they had to remove. Even maybe that's why they even thought about it. Because Communist Whistle was a member at the beginning, but he had a disagreement with Samuel Doe, and they were all from Granji there at that time.
Yeah.
But he was still part of Maryland and Granji there. So they removed him. In fact, that was the first time we had a situation in Liberia called house arrest, as far as I remember. Because no one could visit Community, and Community of course couldn't go out until he left the country. Yeah. And then when you look at the advisory commission, I think that is something you need to also look at. I think they increased that by 2. There were 2 women in that one. And that was a group of almost 59 persons.
Yeah, 2 women. Still
2 women.
almost like one.
I remember Per Brown Boo was part of it.
Yeah, she was part of it.
Brambo.
Yeah.
All right.
And then,
So let's do an overview of constitutional and fundamental rights. First of all, most of the time when we look at the Constitution, we always talk about rights and we don't talk about responsibilities.
yes.
Define those two for me and give me some examples. Rights and responsibility. Know your rights. So we always argue my right, but we don't talk about responsibilities. So let's start with responsibility, Councillor Joel.
Even though the rights of Liberians are spelled out in the Constitution clearly, but these things the rights they also go with how you as a person will behave.
Yeah.
If you decide to hold a demonstration, for example, and that demonstration, I remember there was a demonstration that was the Ellen stepped down, Ellen stepped down, and followed by We Are Step Down, something like that. Even though you have right to be protected by law, it comes with not abusing the rights of others. And so you are under responsibility to maintain law and order if you want law and order. It's not to engage in violence and other stuff and think that it is my right to demonstrate. We will engage in looting, of all 11 people's store in the country or all businesses, and think that you would not be prosecuted. But my take is that because people really do not understand what the requirement of the law, so the responsibility aspect of it is not known to them, or because people, in most cases, interpret the law in the eyes of politics.
Yeah.
So then the responsibility part is not important because politically, this is what I feel, and not even referring to the law and how is supposed what responsibility I'm held to vis-a-vis my rights under the law.
I'll be quiet and let the two of you go back and forth and talk about constitutional rights and fundamental rights and overview. Or just talk. I will be quiet.
Okay, but like Councillor Joe was saying, when it comes to responsibility, let's look at the issue of what I call Article 15 rights, which border on freedom of expression. Now, people think that I should be given the right to say whatever I want to say. Yes, the Constitution gives you that right, but that right also comes with responsibility. Whatever you say, there's a responsibility that what you say about somebody must be the truth. If you say something that is damaging to a person, there are consequences. There are laws to protect that person, and that person can bring you can institute or suit against you. So all of these rights, there's no right that doesn't come with responsibility. Rights are equated to responsibility in your exercise thereof. So nothing is just absolutely given without the attachment of some responsibility for that conduct in which you engage.
Councillor Janet, one of the rights and responsibility we talk about is this freedom of speech.
Right.
And let's use the issue of the Honorable Yeke Koluba. And people are saying he's cursing the president, he's insulting people, he's insulting people. He has the right to speak freely. Let's talk about Honorable Yeke Koluba rights and responsibility. Is he right to insult the president?
No, I don't think so. I
Councillor,
don't think
yeah.
a representative, because you are a representative, your only way of showing disagreement with policy is to engage in vulgarity. I don't think so. I really don't think so.
Is there any law that stops you from insulting the president?
There's a law that places on you a responsibility to act responsibly and to be yeah, we all know that when you are in the House of Representatives or in the Senate, during your discussions in session, those discussions are privileged. They are not supposed to be a basis for a suit against you. But I am not sure whether the meaning of that provision is that you can go there and get sit down and get engaged in nothing but insult. I don't think so.
Yeah.
But again, the thing about the Constitution is that you never know what it really means until you test it. Now, you remember one minister sued Front Page Africa.
Dr. To.
Yes.
Crystal.
Yeah, and he said, these people have published nothing but untrue statement about me, and it had damaged my professional profile. That matter went to court. In the lower court, they found the publisher liable. When it went to the Supreme Court, unfortunately, the front page newspaper did not perfect the appeal. So the Supreme Court was limited in dealing with the matter on its merit. Though it went into trying to explain this and that, but the merits itself was not before the Supreme Court because they failed to perfect the appeal, in which instance the Supreme Court is under no obligation to review the merits of the case. Though sometimes the court might want to do that. So, but we still need a case. I am not talking about some of those cases that were decided under the 1847 Constitution because there's one with Albert Port and I think Steve Turbo. Is Councilor Joe, is that Steve Turbo?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I want to see an interpretation of our current constitution on regarding Article 15. A classic case. Take, for example, can one sue, can the government, for example, bring a suit against Mr. Koluva? Because that's what he had to start from. Of course, I don't believe the president of Liberia can sue him. I don't believe it. Why I don't believe it? Because the president of Liberia is immune from suit as long as he's sitting in the office there. You can't sue, so nobody can sue you. When you start suing and the court agrees to take the case, then it means somebody else can sue you also. So I got some issue with that. But can you sue him for the statement he makes over there? That is something that it will be subject to debate.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Councillor Joel, besides Honorable Koluba, I mean, when it comes to this rights and responsibility as an individual in the country, or journalist, or anyone walking the street, where does your right stop talking about insulting people or even saying stuff against people like the president, whoever in government? Where do we draw the line?
You know, I would like to go back to the callback case.
Okay.
I would think, in as much as a president, he is immune, or she is, when it's a lady, she is immune from lawsuit, and so. But when a representative like Mr. Kolba goes to the session, goes to the House of Representatives, or even in public places, and does nothing except, he dish out insults because he disagrees with policy. Another way to go is to have his colleague to vote and expel him. And if Honorable Kolwa thinks that his expulsion is not legal, the matter may travel to the Supreme Court. And that his responsibility at that time, and Mr. Kolwa comes about because it seemed like for him, disagreeing with the weird government means you should insult the president. He always said the ambassador, and not the presidency. But the person you're referring to sits in the presidency was once ambassador, he now sits as a president.
Right.
Disagreeing with him, and the best way you think is to throw out insult.
But Councillor, what would be the legal basis of anyone suing him for that? Besides, forget about his colleagues suspending him. Can he be sued for, or his rights are protected because, I mean, you can sue him for what he says in chamber?
Well, no, the thing is, he doesn't want to say in chamber, he says at RIA. He says,
when you are going to session or coming from there. So maybe he's going through RIA to go to session.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that the president should go ahead and sue him. That's not what I'm saying. I'm suggesting that in order to test because we want to determine what is the right and responsibility of Mr. Kolba. He has a right to express himself. Is expressing yourself include naming people as you feel? Is that what the law is? In the case of, because the president may not be able to sue, and because he doesn't want to be sued, maybe one way to go is to vote him out of the place, and then he would challenge it and go to court. Or I'm not sure whether the wife of the president will want to get involved in filing a lawsuit against Mr. Kolba. But at the end of the day, the issue there will be, why is Kolba, able to say these things? Is it because he's representative? Does he believe that it is his right to speak? No, your right to speak doesn't include just saying anything all over the place
Yeah.
without the responsibility of being caught. But I overheard, it was funny. I think it was like a month ago. I overheard, 2 weeks ago, I overheard a group of CDC representatives said that when Kolba insults the president, they will beat him in,
Yeah.
in the House of Representatives, which was interesting to me. I said, wait.
Yeah.
So nobody voting to get him out, but you go jump in to fight. And I think well, like the scene there, the following week, he dressed in white suit with black belt and
Yeah,
but
that was Honorable Carlos Gray. Let's read some comments, and viewers, if you're watching, you can join, call in to ask a question or make a comment. The number is in the ticker right there, and it's 605-313-6004. The code is 791-403. If for any reason you call and they say you are charged 1 cent per minute, please stay on the line and give me a receipt, send that to me, and I will pay. That's a 1 cent per minute. So if you stay on the line for 20 minutes, I should be able to send you a check or cash app you your 20 or 25 cents, including tax. Let's go to some comments here. We have some interesting comments here. Abel Wednesday, Liberia is a special place on earth. Dave Jar is asking, can we have true justice in the presence of the dominant presidency? And let me add one more question here, and then you can answer, Councillor. James and Jensen say maybe TJ will be elected and will be denied like Samukai too. Do you see that possibility? TJ is denied and he becomes disabled because he's a convict.
Okay, just before Councillor J will come in, let me just read Article 42 with respect to the issue regarding Representative Koluba. Article 42 says, no member of the Senate or House of Representatives shall be arrested, detained, prosecuted, or tried as a result of opinions expressed or votes cast in the exercise of the functions of his office. Then it continues, members shall be privileged from arrest while attending, going to, or returning from sessions of the legislature, except for treason, felony, or breach of the peace. Then it continues, all official acts done or performed and all statements made in the chambers of the legislature shall be privileged, and no legislator shall be held accountable or punished therefore. So the question that Councillor Dewa was, so if you go in the session and the only thing you're doing there is to re-insult on the president or the president pro tempore, whoever, will that be covered under Article 42? I may say no, so the body authority to interpret this in the light of that conduct will be the Supreme Court of Liberia.
And why will you say no? Because it says, it says it's anything you say, right? You can be tried as a result
but say
of opinions.
all official acts done. Official acts.
The opinions expressed, those are his opinion.
Yeah. But where they talk about the privilege, say all official acts done or performed and all statements made in the chambers of the legislature shall be privileged. So when the Constitution says all statements, do those things include insult?
Yes.
Okay, then the Supreme Court will say that.
That part of the Constitution has reference to your official duty.
Yeah. And expressing your opinion.
Official duty include daily coming to the section and throwing out insult.
No,
Yeah,
it's part of the
exactly.
argument. It's part of what you are saying in chambers. So you
Well,
are
no, what you are saying in Chima must relate to your duty, your official job of
yes,
making laws. It does not. It you can't get up and one day and say, oh, the president brought in a group of rebels, so he's a rebel, or the president is this, or the president is that. Is that it relates to the argument on the issue that impact the Republic of Liberia, for which you were elected as representative. It maybe the representative name comes up. But at the end of the day, if you're doing things that are unrelated and that is not to it's not done to better
yeah.
the people you represent. At the end of the day,
No,
again, as I said, the
the
Supreme
people
Court
will vote you out if they feel that you're not representing them. But to make whatever issue related, you just need your conjunction.
Oh well, the thing is, the another way to do it is for a colleague to vote and get you out,
Yeah, but because
or that if you think that you were removed illegally, then you will go to court. I'm sure, considering Honorable Yeke, who has gone to the Supreme Court, I think 3 different times, to ensure that the House of Representatives will pay him his money or some other thing that he was entitled to, he will go back to the Supreme Court if we should expel
yeah,
him, and that would
let's
that
come.
would that would give us
Let's
an
come.
opinion.
Let's come to the question of James Jensen. So when it comes to TJ, let's say TJ wins, can he be legally disabled based on his on the case as a convict?
You know,
Oh, oh,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
okay, go ahead.
So, to what is interesting about the Samuka case is that the government of Liberia chose to file a petition. The Ministry of Justice. First, it was MPC, Movement for Progressive Change, a political party in Liberia, filed a lawsuit before the justice in chambers. But the answer could be yes, the answer could be no. No, in that if the government doesn't do anything about it, can a citizen from Sando County on his own file a suit and say TJ is a convict and therefore he cannot take his seat? Perhaps a citizen may also join the government as a respondent, file a prohibition proceeding, and maybe add the government of Liberia as a second respondent in a petition. That way, he will be compelling the government of Liberia to ensure that TJ, being factually disabled and legally disabled,
Yes.
could not set his seat. But at the end of the day, if nothing is done, again, the other thing is that because we don't test the law, so when something happened in the Liberian situation, just a war bad. People. JJ is sitting now. I think at some point he tried to join the CDC. I don't know whether he ever joined, but I think at some point he was leaving the Unity Party to go join the CDC. But until those things are tested, and the Supreme Court comes out and say you are a convict, and you can force the government by bringing them to court as a respondent.
Yeah.
That's the way to proceed.
And then just to add to that, I still remember that whenever the court doesn't want to deal with tough questions, one of the things they will normally do is to say, do you have standing in this matter? When the MPC filed this petition for writ of prohibition against Mr. Samokai, and then the government itself filed, in their opinion, the Supreme Court passed on the petition regarding filed by the MPC and say it didn't have standing. But he said it will deal with the government because the government has standing. But he dismissed the petition that was filed by the political party. Now, what sense does it make where you say a political party organized for the purpose of politics in the country, we had no standing to say someone has been convicted, he ain't supposed to take seat. But the Supreme Court, hell no, you get no standing. But the one that has standing is the government of Liberia in this matter, so we'll deal with the government thing. The court also did the same thing in the Maurice Dugley case. In the Maurice Dugley case, Maurice Dugley came to court after he was disqualified by the National Election Commission on grounds that he was not a registered voter and therefore he could not be a candidate to be voted into office. The Supreme Court, in that opinion, said, in fact, raised, I think, 2 or 3 questions. One was whether being a registered voter is a requirement to, or qualification requirement to run for public office. And then they say whether he has standing. And the court said we'll deal with the second question first. And they deal with the standing, and then say you don't get no standing because you are on Unity Party ticket. The Unity Party, in fact, have gone and replaced you, and they didn't raise any issue. Why are you coming?
What?
But in the election law, they say people who get standing elections matter, they call them. One of them is the candidate. But the Supreme Court said no. So they did the same thing with the MPC case. Because I had thought that the first place, this matter will have been settled a long time ago. Now, just look at the sequence, Councillor. On March 24, 2020, the national, the criminal court C brought down the judgment in which they found Samokai guilty. March 24, 2020. This was before the conduct of the senatorial election. When they did that, by September, some people came to court. They went to the National Election Commission and said, first, look, this man has been convicted of crime, so just disallow him to participate in the public election. They say, well, we can't do that because under Liberian law, this man has not been, his appeal has not been determined. So we can't do that. They went to the Supreme Court. In fact, they didn't even follow the process, the procedure. The Supreme Court decided, say, well, though you didn't do that, but we'll still look at the merit of this thing. Look, until a person is convicted by a final judgment, we can't stop the person. And that final judgment means determination by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court did that, and then finally wrote an opinion at which time the National Election Commission had reconfirmed Samoka as winner February 6, 2021. February 8, Supreme Court sat down and confirmed the judgment. But when sending down this thing, the article, the provision of the criminal code that stops one from taking public position when you are a convict was already in place. Why didn't the Supreme Court say, though we take note of this, but because of this law, you will not take seat? The Supreme Court didn't say anything about it until the ministry came and filed bail of information.
Thank you. Let me bring in a few comments before we move on. Lawrence Power said, can private citizens of Sando County file suit against Senator Tiaje?
A lot of people like this, they
want a seat, right? Yeah, this is political season because myself, I want to run.
You know, I personally, I think it was like 2 months or 3 months ago. JJ was alleged to receive a vehicle for a lady, I think from Minnesota.
Yeah.
That he claimed to own. It's a test. A citizen can do that, but if the Supreme Court should say that you don't have the standing to sue, that you can be the one to raise what a judge is a convict, then there where the matter will stand. But again, if the Supreme Court wants to be very, very progressive, it can look into the matter and say, look, what happened with maybe even the money that he paid, maybe the $200 or $300 he paid downstairs before
right.
He didn't pay any more. No, there's no other. He has not paid any other money, and he has not gone to jail. The Supreme Court could lay aside the issue, the standing issue, and then
Yeah,
decide to say you are a convict. Perhaps you may need a progressive court to do that,
Yeah.
uh, where the court may, I think we get too stuck into the what right do you have to file a lawsuit as compared to what the law actually should
Should do.
hold. And as a result of that, you will be allowing many things to happen again, including lawlessness, to
Yeah.
happen in a situation where political people can be convicted, and
Let,
then
let, read, let read a few comments and then we can conclude. Jeremiah Gifler said, will these guests be regular guests on this show because the two lawyers are very experienced and informed? Councillor Jana, I want you to please respond.
no, you should resolve. We are students of the law. We like the law, so we read and we exchange ideas, and that's exactly what we do. We keep reading.
The series itself speaks for itself. We said from the beginning that we will be part of this. It is intended to help our people understand what the process is in Liberia, and so that in many cases they will be able to handle things that they can handle instead of going to lawyer and being charged a huge amount of money. When you can maybe get your own bond, or you can go and say, magistrate, I have social market at red light. And I can come when you want me. But they need to first understand what the processes that the proceeding will discuss to be able to help them out. So yes, we'll be here. I will be here.
Yeah, and then maybe Mr. Jai, you also need to know that Councillor Joe and I were classmates
Yeah.
at law schools, and we graduated the same year.
Yeah, we graduated when the light went off.
Exactly.
And the light still going off, even at the ministerial.
Oh yeah, right now it's dark.
Percy Emerson has an experience here. He said, wow, so true. I was summoned in Liberia in general by a contractor who claimed that he was underpaid by me. I honored the court and appeared just to be told that I have to go to jail because the judge had left for the day. They asked me for $50 for bond or risk going to jail for the night. Is that how it works?
She said she was summoned?
He was...
oh yeah,
yeah,
I was summoned.
Yeah.
I don't know what she means by summoned though, but if you are summoned, there's no reason that they will tell you to go to jail or file a bond.
Exactly.
You're not even near a bond because you are in a civil matter, which we'll discuss further. But apparently she might have been, maybe the magistrate wrote her, and even with that, it will still not be sufficient to send her to jail or ask her to file a bond. There has to be a writ of arrest that brought her to court.
Yeah.
Other than that,
and since maybe those are some of the reasons why when you have these you got businesses where you interact generally with the public, that you get a lawyer who sometimes will just advise you.
Yes.
Because maybe they were taking advantage of the fact that you're now lawyer, you're now familiar with the processes, so they get issued someone, assume it was a summon, and then they took you there, or you went there, and then they just use it to say harass the woman a little bit for small money.
Yeah.
I'm sure you gave them the $50 in order to get out of the place.
Oh yeah. Maybe it was a letter that the magistrate wrote. Maybe it was the letter that he wrote. But again, this is why this program is okay, because it's very good. Because once you learn that, if the magistrate has gone home and people in the courtroom try to intimidate you, you can quickly file a complaint, have your brother or sister to write a circuit judge that is available. They will restrain them.
Yeah.
So you don't have to pay $50 US to go home, because you will never get back that money.
The Ministry of Justice back then didn't enforce the law. I think it's still the same Samuka case. Can this minister enforce the judgment? I mean, not Samuka, it's the same TIJ case.
Well, the thing is, the Ministry of Justice does not enforce judgment. It's the court. In other words, did the Ministry of Justice go to court to seek that the court ensure that the sentence will carry out? Maybe that's what the person is referring to.
Okay.
Again, politics, maybe no.
In
This one
the
from
in
William
the in
King.
the TJ case, the
Okay.
moment TJ announced an appeal, and after a few days, that was like a bluff. I'm announcing an appeal. So the court said, okay, and they granted the appeal. Then few days thereafter, he went back and started to pay the money, which was supposed to be the restitution, which is just one part of the sentence.
Right.
Then the other part, and the LAC, as far as I know, took no further action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
William King said these two lawyers are confirming why very, very few reputable investors or corporations want to engage in business in Liberia. And Martin Brown said, over the years, what I've noticed about politics in Liberia, every political party that is in power usually cherry pick when it comes to enforcement of the law. For example, CDC is prosecuting some officials of the Unity Party administration, forgetting about those corrupt officials that has been indicted by the GAC and the LSC in their government. Is that how government should run? I don't think so.
No.
And talking about Mr. Yeke Koluba, Dave just said he often complains that the speaker is a stooge of the president, thus he's preventing the discussion of fundamental issues affecting the people. So Yeke's concerns are connected to his function.
You go further to cost the president too.
And Councillor Janet, you said, some of the things that the Supreme Court did, like their opinion, asking for standing if the president actually has standing. Michael Jacob is saying, is the Supreme Court now credible?
Because I have a standing.
No, he said, because I need to know because Mr. Ure said there is no justice in the courts. So based on what you have experienced with the Supreme Court, is the Supreme Court credible? That's the question.
The Supreme Court is credible. You need to insist, go to court. We are lawyers. You want us to say the Supreme Court is not credible? The Supreme Court is credible. You make your argument before the court. That's why we keep insisting that people must go to court. Go and test the law.
Now that Councillor Janet, now to you, Councillor Janet, do you think if Honorable Samuka go back to the NEC, will he be given his seat back as a senator?
I don't know. We are saying test the law.
Good.
That's what we're saying.
O'Neill said all those that took part in the illegal removal of the Associate Justice, including Vanish Shemmer and Chief Justice Committee, can be charged with treason.
Wow.
No.
You said no?
No. That treason. That matter is behind us now. Let's just move forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe the treason is overthrowing the state.
All right. We almost to the end. Let's wrap up. Let's wrap up on the overview of our constitutional and fundamental rights. What's the difference? And how are those carried out in Liberia?
You want to go first?
Yeah, well, the thing is, it all would, in my mind, anyone who believes that he's injured or she's injured needs to take his or her case to court. If you think that your right is violated, it's a bad thing to try to interpret it politically. The best thing to do is to go before the court, challenge it. For example, take the situation of the Constitution not being taught in the schools as stated in the Constitution. If you just say that the country doesn't have interest in doing that, and you don't challenge the government by way of filing a petition for mandamus, compelling them to find the money to teach the Constitution relatively in all of the schools, then the right on that will not just be enforced. Rights are not enforced by what people think on the street. or how people feel is what the court says at the end of the day. The constitution we have is new. I was looking at one of the rights that has to do with the management of the resources of Liberia for the interests of Liberians and that of the development of the country. We see all of these mineral development agreements that have been signed. What is it Liberians are doing about it? To say, what is the impact of these agreements? And what does it mean in terms of development? How's about job creation? Why don't we know what in those agreements? Again, the way to be able to do so is to go ahead and file a lawsuit and demand that the right to ensure that the resources of Liberia, minerals and resources of Liberia, are protected for Liberians and for the development of the country. In the absence of that, the government of Liberia will sign every document they wish to sign.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
Councillor, before you end, I know we talked about this before, but let's address it again. Achimo Frederick said, why is it that the Solicitor General is the one representing the government in criminal cases?
And not other lawyers, you mean? Not other lawyers from the Ministry of Justice?
No, why should it be the SG? Should the SG be doing that? Is the SG supposed to represent the government in criminal cases?
Which one is going to represent the government in? The Solicitor General is a major prosecutor at the Ministry of Justice, and the chief prosecutor is the Minister of Justice. So, but he's like the field man, if you like. So what's wrong? And that is provided for by statute. That's what the statute says.
I think the question is coming from the Alexander Cummings case, where they are saying the Solicitor General. So they say, wait a minute. It was Benina Ure who sued Cummings. How come the Solicitor General is the one prosecuting? I think that's where it's coming from.
Okay. But again, I think as as this series continue, people get to understand that criminal cases, the initiation of criminal complaints, the prosecution of criminal complaints start with the Ministry of Justice. And so the Solicitor General, the issue I have with the Solicitor General is continue calling himself Chief Prosecutor of the Republic of Liberia.
And he's not.
When he's not. No statute gave him such a right to say that. In fact, his boss is the Minister of Justice. And he is the Chief Prosecutor. He is a major prosecutor in the Republic of Liberia, but he must consult with the Minister of Justice as to how the cases have been prosecuted.
And act under his direct.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is not, let me just add, this is not the first Solicitor General that is doing that, because when the late Councillor Frederick Chiru was Minister of Justice, I visited Liberia and I went to see him because he's a very good friend, older brother and so forth. So I went to the Minister of Justice to find him just to say hi, I was in the country. And we're talking on a case that I went to Liberia for. And this case was being prosecuted by the Solicitor General at the ECOWAS court, the Malika Z. York. We filed the case, Malika Z. York versus the Republic of Liberia. And the Minister of Justice said he never heard anything about that case before in his life. So I said, but Councilor, what are you talking about? He said, the Solicitor General doesn't report to me. She reports to the President of Liberia. And I laughed. That's what he said. And I said, oh, this is the situation. He said, my son, don't bring me in trouble. Just leave it alone. Go about what you're talking about. But it seems like that is a situation that the more connected the Solicitor General is to the President of the Republic of Liberia, the more he or she thinks that she's the Minister of Justice.
Yeah, but Councilor, the thing is, it is the person sitting in the office. Our Minister of Justice, my Solicitor General was Councilor T.C. Gu, your big brother.
Mm-hmm.
But he never took any case anywhere until we discussed and agreed how to proceed.
Correct.
He did it.
Correct.
So it depends on the person sitting there, you allow that. But let me come again to the same thing Councilor Joe was saying, the issue of right here. One of the things about making a country a better country is for citizens to responsibly participate in the running of the state. And we do that sometimes by the vote we cast as individual citizens in to elect people to help in the governance system. So the issue of voting is very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
You are bid, yeah, as a citizen to participate, vote, put people in office so that they can run the country. Now, those of you in the diaspora, sometimes I wonder what your contribution will be or can be beside the remittances you're sent here. Why don't you people exercise the right to absentee ballot, which is provided for under the Liberian Constitution?
Really? Where is
That's part
that?
of your right.
Where is
But
that?
it seems like, no, like as Joe said, these rights to exercise, then you got to stand up for them.
Yeah.
But if you don't want that, it just said they get made a lot of noise and then send money here for people to eat. Oh man, you're not helping the country. And that's part of not just a right, but it's a responsibility on you. And it can only happen when you take the necessary steps to ensure that people comply with this. Countries like Guinea, Sierra Leone, their citizens in the diaspora participate in their public election, especially the election of president thing. You mean we can do it? And it's provided for in our constitution, but
Yeah.
unless you stand up, it's not going to happen.
There are two reasons for perhaps
No,
the
no.
diaspora Liberians
Before
don't
you
get
go to there,
involved.
where is that provided for in the Constitution? Go ahead. Why
Article 80 on a C.
Article 80C.
Yeah. You want to
And
read it?
yes, because I never heard this. So let me read.
But John, you're not lawyer.
Ah, but you never told me. It said every Liberian citizen shall have the right to be registered in a constituency and to vote in public elections only in the constituency where registered, either in person or by absentee ballot. Huh? Provided that such citizen shall have the right to change his voting constituency as may be prescribed by the legislature. So the way I understand that is if I register in Grand Cape Mount County and time for the election, I'm not there, I'm in Zerikore, I can do absentee ballot. But now after I live here for 20 years,
That's not the point.
okay,
If you are a registered voter,
right?
if you are a registered voter, the election commission will be on a duty to make that preparation for you to vote where you are, like they do it in all the other countries.
So where do we register?
Are you a registered voter? So now your need to write, my way of looking at it will be for some of you who are registered to make it, to notify the National Election Commission that you want to exercise your right as provided under this provision of the Constitution, and that necessary preparation should be made to ensure that you exercise that right. So we start from there. If the Election Commission doesn't respond, or they say you can't do that, we ain't get the money, then we'll move to the next step.
Marcus said,
We
thanks,
got to
Councillor
do
Jammeh.
something.
We are learning the laws of our country. Very good forum. Go ahead, Councillor Jewa, you were saying something.
No, I was saying I guess one of the reasons is that the diaspora Liberian leadership have been so much concerned with politics than the law. A lot of them have been so much consumed by dual citizenship and not not really consulting lawyers who are practicing lawyers to be able to see what are how to proceed. But I learned lately that the House of Representatives, I think recently, I just passed. I think going to the Senate, passed a bill from their end, going to the Senate to allow Liberians outside of Liberia to vote vote at the at the Liberian embassy where they are. But whether the Senate will take it up, that's another thing. But again, everything under our system is testing the law. I'm sure when you go to the election commission, they will say, oh, well, we can't tell how many people are U.S. citizens and how many people are not. And so we can grant that kind of right. But equally so, our Supreme Court can admit people who were not even, I'm sure, never went to law school in Liberia. And then other Liberians who live outside the country who became lawyers, trained in the United States and returned in the case of Jallo, and he can be refused. Um, it left with testing the Lord. I mean,
Yeah.
my
And you all keep saying testing the law. Here's a question. And I say you keep saying we should test the law, but what if, I mean, will we get justice? That's the question.
well, if you just blinding yourself and say no justice, this is what this series all is so good about, because people are angry with the court, citizens outside of the court angry with the court without understanding how do our courts work? What are the things that go on, in the court? Why the court rule as it did? So again, go to court instead of fearing whether you will get justice.
Exactly.
And see what the Supreme Court will say.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's what this tier was saying. There is no problem, but will you get fair justice? You will not know
Yeah, but
until
when
you
you,
test the
but Mr.
system.
Jack, when you defeat yourself with,
Yeah.
you haven't even gone yet. Now you say you're not going to get. So how do you get this jurisprudence we're talking about? How do you get this thing expanded?
So
How do
you go
you
to
do
court.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just have to go to the court.
Last question
That's
here.
it.
William is saying, Counselor, why have you not filed this on behalf of your diaspora brothers and sisters?
Right.
Well, you see, the good thing is that I don't live in the diaspora. You who live there with Councilor Jewel, you should initiate something. We can join you from here, but you got to start. And there's a way to do it. Few of you who got voting card, we can start with you and notify the election commission, but you got to subscribe to it.
Right.
You know,
Is
there's
there
a procedure to follow.
is there a threshold? Say you got to be 10 registered
Well,
voters.
I just think we should get a good number. Like me, I would suggest something like 50 and above.
Okay.
Do a good, Councilor J was there. Do a good letter and notify the election commission with your voting numbers. So that number, so they do not say who are these people. So you say we are here and we want you to ensure that you put the proper mechanism in place so that we can exercise our franchise. And then hear what they say.
Okay. William is kind of pressuring me, say read my comment. I started reading, but you're talking about Tabata. These two lawyers are confirming why very few reputable investors, corporate want to engage in Liberia. Is the suggestion that Liberian citizens and a few select lawyers should take the Supreme Court to trial. It is at this junction of very smart reasoning that a legitimate investor or corporation will consider the risks very politely and quietly look at an alternative. Liberia is finished. We have. I don't understand where you're going. Let's get your closing comments here, Councillor, so that we don't go beyond the 2 hour limit. Let me start with Councillor Joel.
Well, I would again say that it's very important that Liberians at home and abroad pay key attention to the presentations, the series, so that at the end of the day, it is a helpful exercise, very helpful, and we educate our people to know their rights and their responsibility, as well as to appreciate what our court system is and why they need to go to court.
Thank you. Councillor Janet.
I think it couldn't have been said better. This is an opportunity for you to at least have some basic ideas as to how the legal system in Liberia works. And then to also know that when you have legal problems, you can contact lawyers who will be able to do representation for you. That's their training. That's what they do for livelihood. And those of you who are our brothers in the diaspora, we want to urge you to to become quite engaged with your own, with the welfare of your own country, and you can do so in a very effective way by just ensuring that you test the law. So let's start with the absentee balloting.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. The Justice Forum continue. March 13, we're going to be dealing with the subject civil justice system versus the criminal justice system. Ooh, this is a big one, and I can't wait. On Tuesday, a Liberian-born councilman in Falcom Heights, Minnesota, will be here. He's running to be representative, district number 66A, also in Minnesota. That's Yakasa Way. Way is going to be here. Way is round. His parents are right there from the Saniquale area. He's going to be here, and you don't want to miss it. Councillor Joel, Councillor Johnny, I want to thank you so much. This is just the beginning. This is day one into our long series on the legal system, how it impacts us. And we learned something new today. We're going to be collecting our voting cards, and Councillor Joel, we're going to be calling on you. We want to vote because we too are Liberians. Thank you so much. We want to thank our viewers for staying here with us. We're going to continue this series next week. Keep it here at Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We also want this series to be aired in Liberia. So a way for us to do that is to pay money to the people in Liberia so that they can air the show. So if you are watching and this is you find this very interesting, please reach out to us to help us broadcast this so that it can get to my people all the way behind God's holy back in Dodwick and Sino County and other remote areas of Liberia. Until then, from all of us here at Focus on Liberia, we say have a good night as we end with our song that says, whether you live in the diaspora or in Liberia, whether you are able to vote legally or as an absentee, we are all Liberians, and we must do everything to keep Liberia as that glorious land of liberty, as the oasis in Africa, that beacon of hope for all free people, for all Black people in the world. Good night and God bless.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment.